I should have known something was wrong when I couldn't find her red heels. Not the cheap ones, those ruby Louboutins I bought her for our 10th anniversary. She called them her power shoes, said they made her feel like the woman she used to be. She only wore them on rare occasions, parties, promotions, celebrations. Never for work. Never for something like a marketing conference in Denver. And yet, they were gone. I stood in the walk-in closet, half-dressed, tie draped around my neck, trying to figure out why the absence of one pair of shoes made the silence in our house feel unbearable. Emma had left the night before, kissed me on the cheek at the door like a woman late for a flight, like a woman who had a plane to catch and a lie to protect. "I'll call you when I land," she'd said, voice muffled as she adjusted her scarf. "Don't wait up, okay?" She never called. But she texted. "Landed. Exhausted. Talk tomorrow. Love you." That was at 11:14 p.m. Now it was morning, the house empty except for me and the echo of the door closing behind her. I walked into the kitchen, coffee already brewing on the timer. She'd thought of everything. Always did. Emma was the kind of woman who left behind a trail of perfection. Fresh towels in the guest bathroom. A fridge stocked with my favorite beer. A sticky note on the stove, "Left you pasta. Just heat it up. Love you." It was all too clean. And maybe it would have ended there. Maybe I would have gone on believing the conference was real, believing her flight to Denver had touched down just like she said, believing that the red heels had made the cut because she wanted to feel powerful, while speaking on some panel about digital engagement. God knows, I wanted to believe it. I wanted to be the man whose wife went to a conference and came back with hotel soaps and boring stories about flight delays. But then I got the call. It was Nate. My best friend since college. Best man at our wedding. He was calling from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, I could barely hear him over the background noise, music, laughter, clinking glasses. "Hey, sorry to bug you," he said. "You free for a minute?" "Sure," I said, my hand already tightening around the coffee mug. "What's up?" "I'm in Chicago for a client dinner, some hedge fund guys, place called La Brioche on Wells Street." I raised an eyebrow. "Fancy." "Yeah. Funny thing, though," his voice slowed, like he was tiptoeing toward something. "I think I just saw Emma." I didn't say anything. She was across the room, corner table. With a guy. Definitely not a work dinner. My stomach flipped. "You sure it was her?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Red heels," he said. And just like that, everything cracked. The silence. The sticky note. The coffee. The packed bags. Her soft kiss at the door. It all collapsed under the weight of two words. Red heels. I was already grabbing my keys when I asked him, "Is she still there?" There was a pause. Then, "Yeah. You want me to go over?" "No," I said, my voice flat. "Don't say a word." Chicago was 3 hours away, but I made it in 2.5. The highway blurred past in streaks of steel and sky, the kind of drive you only make when your world has tilted sideways and the only thing keeping you upright is the need to see with your own eyes. I didn't call. Didn't text. I didn't even tell Nate I was coming. I just drove, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I replayed Nate's words over and over. Red heels. Corner table. With a guy. La Brioche sat on the corner of Wells and 9th, a warm amber glow spilling from the windows like something sacred. I parked half a block away, killed the engine, and sat there for a moment, staring. My breath fogged the glass. A couple laughed as they walked past my car, arm in arm, drunk on wine and closeness. I hated them without knowing why. The restaurant was upscale, intimate. White linen. Crystal glass. The kind of place where waiters whispered and forks never clinked. I stepped inside, the host glancing at me in my wrinkled shirt, probably wondering if I was lost. But I wasn't. I scanned the tables, one by one. Then I saw her. Emma. She was laughing. Head tilted slightly, lips painted crimson to match the heels peeking out from beneath the table. Her blouse, cream silk, was the one she never wore because it was too revealing for work. And across from her, a man. Mid-30s, square jaw, expensive watch. He leaned in close, murmuring something that made her blush. Her hand was on his wrist. That tiny detail hit harder than anything. Not his face. Not the laugh. But the ease of that touch. Familiar. Intimate. The kind of gesture you give someone when you've already crossed a line, and decided you don't care who sees it. My feet moved before I could stop them. Nate saw me first. He was at the bar, drink in hand, eyes wide as he watched me stalk toward the corner table. He started to stand, maybe to stop me, maybe just to warn me. But I was already there. I didn't say her name. I didn't have to. Emma looked up, and froze. Her smile collapsed. Her eyes widened in horror, and for the first time in our 15 years together, she looked guilty. Not confused. Not surprised. Not sorry for being caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just guilty. "Hey, honey," I said, loud enough for the people at the next table to turn their heads. "Conference going well?" The man, her man, sat back, clearly confused but not afraid. Yet. "Who are you?" he asked. I ignored him. Emma stood up quickly, reaching across the table like she could erase the last 10 seconds with a touch. "David, wait, let me explain." "Oh, please do," I said, voice rising, cutting through the white noise hum of the restaurant. "Explain why you're in Chicago instead of Denver. Why you're having wine and fondue with Casanova here while I'm home heating up your pasta." The man stood now, trying to de-escalate. "Look, I didn't know she was married." I snapped. "Yeah. That's usually something people mention before dessert." Emma's voice was shaking. "Can we talk somewhere else? Please." "Not here." I stepped closer, close enough to see the panic rise in her throat like bile. "Why? Embarrassed?" I asked coldly. "Afraid your little fantasies ruined now that reality walked in the door?" She blinked. Once. Twice. And then, like a switch flipped inside her, something hardened behind her eyes. She straightened her shoulders and crossed her arms. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? I'll give it to you." Her voice dropped into that brittle, shaking register that only came out during our worst fights, like glass cracking just before it shatters. "You want the truth," she said again, louder now. "Okay. The truth is, I didn't go to Denver. I didn't go to a conference. I came here. To see him." The words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. All around us, silverware stilled, conversations died mid-sentence. The quiet was sharp, like the whole room was holding its breath. Him, the man. He had the decency to look away. His face was flushed, jaw tight. Maybe from guilt. Maybe just embarrassment. I didn't care. I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at her. Emma. My wife. The woman who once cried into my shoulder when her father died. Who squeezed my hand in a hospital room as we heard our daughter's heartbeat for the first time. The same woman who now looked at me like I was the one who had broken something. "Why?" I asked, quieter now. "Why him?" She swallowed hard. "Because I needed something that wasn't dying." My chest tightened. "What the hell does that mean?" Her eyes were wet, but she blinked the tears back with a kind of practiced strength. She didn't want my sympathy. She wanted me to understand. Or maybe she just wanted to hurt me properly. We've been coasting for years, she said. You come home and sit in silence. You barely touch me. You forgot my birthday last year. You say I'm beautiful, but you never look up from your damn laptop. That's marriage, I hissed. It's not a fairy tale. It's not supposed to be a funeral either, she shot back. I laughed then. Short, bitter. So what, you decided to bury it yourself? Behind my back. With him? Her lover, still silent, stepped in again, voice calm. I didn't know about you. Not at first. She didn't talk about you. Of course she didn't, I snapped. That would ruin the fantasy, right? The brave, beautiful woman flying across the country to feel something again. David, Emma began. No, I pointed at her. My voice was shaking now, not from fear, but from the pressure building inside me like a fault line about to split wide open. You don't get to be the victim here. You lied. You walked out our door with a suitcase full of excuses and came here to pretend your life didn't exist. You don't get to rewrite the story just because you're bored. She winced. It wasn't about boredom. It was about breathing. Breathing. I could have slapped the table. I could have thrown my drink in his face. But instead, I just stood there. Still. Frozen in the middle of a restaurant filled with strangers who now knew my wife was cheating on me with a man in a blue button-down shirt and a $5,000 watch. I wanted to scream. Instead, I leaned in close, so only she could hear me. Enjoy your weekend, I whispered. Because when you come home, I won't be there. I turned and walked out before she could answer, before I could see whether her eyes filled with tears or fire. I didn't want to know which would hurt more. Nate caught up to me on the sidewalk. David, wait, Jesus, man. I didn't know. I stopped, staring past him at nothing. I did, I said quietly. He frowned. What? I think. I've known for a while. I just didn't want it to be true. The city bled past my window like a dream I wanted to forget. I barely remember getting in the car. Barely remember the parking garage, the cold steering wheel, the mechanical click of the gear shift. My hands moved on their own, eyes locked forward, heart still somewhere inside that restaurant where Emma sat across from another man and told me she needed to breathe. I had walked out with pride, with steel in my spine, like a man reclaiming his dignity. But alone in the car, that pride crumbled. All I could feel was the hollow space behind my ribs. The place where trust used to live. Red lights. Honking horns. A blur of rain beginning to dot the windshield. I wasn't crying, but the ache in my throat said I could have if I let go just a little more. She picked him over me. Again and again, that thought echoed. Every mile I drove, it whispered louder. Not because he was better. Not richer. Not kinder. Just newer. And I had become wallpaper in her life, faded, familiar, forgettable. I reached the I-55 ramp just as the sky opened up. Rain poured in sheets, heavy and blinding. I flicked the wipers on, squinting into the storm. The road shimmered like glass. I shouldn't have been driving. Not like this. Not with hands that couldn't stop shaking. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. Emma. A text. Please. Just talk to me. Please don't leave like this. I looked up, and never saw it coming. The blare of a horn. A flash of white headlights cutting across the intersection. The roar of impact. Then nothing. Underscore 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 underscore. When I woke, the world was too white. Ceiling tiles. Beeping monitors. The sterile smell of antiseptic and metal. My chest burned. My legs refused to move. I blinked, and pain flared behind my eyes. A nurse noticed. She rushed to my side, pressed a button, and spoke softly, "You're at St. Joseph's. You were in an accident. Don't try to speak yet." I wanted to ask how long. I wanted to ask if anyone had called Emma. And then I realized, I didn't care if they had. But she came anyway. Hours later. Maybe days. I didn't know. All I knew was the sound of soft footsteps and the sudden weight in the room as she walked in. Emma. Her eyes were bloodshot. Hair pulled back in a messy knot. Makeup smeared from crying or guilt, maybe both. She froze when she saw me awake. "David," she whispered, voice cracking. I stared at her. Blank. Numb. She stepped closer, lips trembling. I didn't know if you were going to make it." I wanted to tell her I didn't care. That she should have stayed in Chicago with him. That her presence at my bedside felt like mockery. But my throat was dry. My jaw wired shut. So I just watched her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you hate me. But when they called, I ran to the car. I didn't even pack." She sat beside me, took my hand without asking. Her touch was soft. Familiar. And I hated how my fingers twitched toward hers, like my body hadn't caught up with the truth. She leaned forward, voice low and trembling. I told him I couldn't see him again. I closed my eyes. Not because I forgave her. But because I couldn't stand to see her. "He was a mistake," she continued. "I don't even know if it was about him. I think I just wanted someone to make me feel wanted again. To feel seen. And when you stopped seeing me." I opened my eyes slowly. Watched her crumble. "I broke us," she whispered. "But I think we were already breaking." Silence. Machines beeped. Rain tapped the window. And for the first time in days, I felt something other than fury. It was grief. Grief for the man I'd been. For the marriage we built and slowly abandoned. For all the words we never said. All the times we passed each other in the hallway like ghosts in a shared house. Emma pressed her forehead to our joined hands. "Please don't let this be the end." I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. The third night in the hospital, I woke to find Emma asleep in the chair beside me, curled into herself like a child who didn't belong in this room, like someone who had wandered into the wrong life. She'd been there every day since the accident. She hadn't left, not once. She helped the nurses adjust my bed, wiped my forehead when I was too weak to lift my arms, held a straw to my lips when I couldn't drink on my own. I'd watched her hands, those same hands that had once cupped another man's face, and for reasons I still didn't understand, I didn't pull away. I watched her now, her face soft in sleep. Her head rested against a rolled-up hoodie. Her shoes, those same damn red heels, sat untouched in the corner, scuffed and silent like they had nothing left to say. And something cracked inside me. She'd stayed. Through the silence. Through the shame. Through the endless blood pressure checks and whispered updates from doctors. She stayed when she could have run. When she had run, once. And that meant something. When she woke, it was with a start. She blinked at me, as if surprised I was still there, as if I might have left her this time. "Hey," she whispered. I nodded slowly. I couldn't speak, not with the trach tube, not yet, but my eyes stayed on her, steady. Open. And she saw it. Something in my gaze shifted. Emma sat up straighter, smoothing her hair with one trembling hand. "You're looking at me different," she said. "Like you see me again. Like I'm not just noise in the room." I blinked. Once. She bit her lip. "I don't know if that's good or bad." She stood up, paced to the window, stared out into the foggy Chicago skyline. Her voice dropped to a whisper, so fragile it barely reached me. "I think I forgot who I was, David. Somewhere between grocery lists and parent-teacher conferences and watching you drift further into your work, I just stopped feeling like someone you'd turn toward." She turned to me slowly. "That's not your fault. It's not mine either. It just happened. And I was weak. I saw someone who made me feel like I existed again. And I mistook that for love." She stepped closer. It wasn't love. It was loneliness dressed up in perfume. Her eyes shimmered. "You didn't deserve that. I need you to know that. I have sat in this room for 3 days begging a God I don't even believe in to give me a chance to make this right." She leaned down, took my hand. "I'm not here to be forgiven," she whispered. "I'm here because I love you. And if you never touch me again, if you never let me back into your bed or your heart, I'll still stay. I'll still make sure you're okay. Because that's what love is. Not lust. Not escape. It's showing up when you least deserve it." The tears finally fell. Silently. Openly. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could punish her. Or I could pull her back from the edge. The nurse came in that afternoon with a clipboard and a sympathetic smile. "Physical therapy starts tomorrow," she said. "It's going to be hard. You'll need someone at home." "I'll be there," Emma said before I could try to gesture otherwise. The nurse raised an eyebrow. "That okay with you, Mr. Walker?" My eyes moved slowly toward Emma. She wasn't pleading anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was just there, hands folded, eyes red-rimmed, heart on the floor. I nodded. Her breath caught, like I'd knocked the air out of her with kindness. And then, gently, I reached for her hand. I squeezed it, weakly, but it was real. She let out a sob so quiet it could have been a breath. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against our joined hands like it was an altar. "Thank you," she whispered. "I swear to God, I won't waste this." That night, when the nurse dimmed the lights and the machines blinked their tired lullabies, Emma pulled the chair closer to my bed, curling her legs beneath her. She held my hand as if it tethered her to the earth. And for the first time since La Brioche, I slept. Not because the pain was gone. But because something broken inside both of us had stopped bleeding. Recovery was a slow and humiliating thing. I couldn't walk on my own for weeks. Every step felt like fire. My ribs ached with every breath, every turn, every cough. But the pain wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was letting her see me like that, broken, bandaged, helpless. The woman who betrayed me now bathed me. Buttoned my shirts. Sat in the passenger seat during hospital drives and watched me struggle with the seatbelt like I was made of glass and she was afraid of shattering me again. She never complained. Never sighed. Never once asked for forgiveness again. She was just there, quiet, steady, relentless. Every morning she brought me coffee, just the way I liked it, even though she drank tea now. Every afternoon, she helped me with my walking exercises, gripping my arm while I shuffled along the hallway like an old man in his 30s. And every night, she slept on the small couch in our bedroom, refusing the comfort of the bed she had once shared with me. We didn't talk about Chicago. Or the man. Or the way her lips had parted when I walked into that restaurant and caught her red-handed. But it lived in the silence between us. And sometimes that silence screamed louder than any fight ever could. Then came the letter. It arrived on a rainy Thursday, tucked between hospital bills and junk mail. A simple white envelope with no return address, but the handwriting on the front stopped me cold. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, 2 sentences, scrawled in blue ink. I didn't know she was married. I wouldn't have touched her if I did. I hope you get better, man. No name. Just guilt. I set it down slowly on the kitchen counter, the weight of it heavier than the paper could possibly explain. Emma found me standing over it a few minutes later. Her face paled when she saw the envelope. "He sent that," I said quietly. She nodded, eyes wide. "I didn't tell him to." "I know." A pause. "You were going to leave with him, weren't you?" She didn't lie. "I thought about it," she whispered. "Before you walked into that restaurant, I was halfway gone. And there it was. Not betrayal. Not fantasy. Not temptation. Abandonment." I looked at her then, really looked. Not at her face. But at her. She looked thinner. Paler. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, her nails chewed raw. Her blouse hung loose on her frame. Grief clung to her like a second skin. "I don't know how to forget it," I said, the words heavy with truth. She stepped closer, voice quiet. "Don't forget. Just, let me earn my way back." And for the first time, I realized she wasn't asking for love. She was asking for time. The days stretched into weeks. I began to walk without a cane. I began to drive. I began to look at her without hearing his voice in my head. And slowly, something changed. Not like a switch. More like dawn, where the dark lingers at the edges but the sky starts to glow anyway. One night, I woke from a nightmare, sirens, metal, Emma's voice screaming my name, and found her at the edge of the bed, staring at me. "I heard you," she said. "You were crying." I wiped my face. I hadn't even realized. She reached for my hand. I let her hold it. We stayed that way until morning. Later that week, we drove past the church where we got married. It was just a route, nothing symbolic. But as the white steeple came into view, something in me cracked. "I remember how nervous you were," she said suddenly, smiling faintly. "You couldn't stop checking your tie." "You cried before I did," I replied without thinking. She laughed. The sound was small. Surprised. As if she hadn't expected I remembered anything good about us. And the truth was, I did. There were still pieces worth saving. And maybe we'd both forgotten that. That night, I told her she could sleep in the bed again. Not because everything was fixed. Not because I trusted her completely. But because healing starts somewhere. She stared at me for a long moment, as if afraid to hope. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "No," I admitted. "But I'm tired of sleeping in a house full of ghosts." She slid into the bed slowly, like it might reject her. We lay in silence. I didn't reach for her. But I didn't pull away when she reached for me. We came home on a Wednesday. It was early spring, the kind of day that smelled like thawed earth and second chances. The tulips Emma had planted last fall had started to bloom, yellow and red heads pushing through soil like they'd been waiting for us. For a brief moment, the house didn't feel like a place where something had died. It felt like a place where something might begin again. She opened the front door before I could, stepping in with a quiet reverence, like someone entering a church. I followed her, leaning just slightly on the cane I still hadn't completely shaken off. The familiar scent of wood polish and old books greeted us. Our books. Our kitchen. Our walls, still painted that soft gray she chose years ago. It had been 74 days since the accident. And it felt like we'd come back from war. The first week, we kept things simple. No hard conversations. No confessions. We moved around each other gently, like dancers in a room with broken glass. But there was peace in the small things. Coffee together at the kitchen island. Groceries unpacked side by side. Laughter, real laughter, one night while watching an old movie, the kind we used to quote word for word before the silences took over. I began to walk stronger. Cook again. Drive into town without wincing when I sat behind the wheel. My body was healing. And in its quiet way, my heart was, too. Emma stayed present. She cleaned the house like she was scrubbing the past from the walls. She started painting again, watercolors in the sunroom, soft and impressionistic. She made dinner most nights, left notes on the fridge, kissed my temple when she thought I was asleep. And slowly, I started believing it. That she had come back for real. That she had chosen me. Some nights, I'd wake to find her facing me in bed, eyes open in the dark. Just watching. You okay? I'd whisper. She'd nod. I don't deserve this. And maybe she didn't. But some part of me wanted her anyway. It happened one night after dinner. She was in the shower, humming softly, her voice barely rising above the rush of water. I was heading to the laundry room, had meant to toss in towels, but paused when I heard something strange. Her voice. But not humming. Words. At first, I thought she was on the phone, until I realized she was talking to herself. I can't stay much longer, she murmured, a quiet intensity in her voice. He's better, he's walking again, he's fine. I'll tell him soon. I just need him stable. There was a pause. Then. No, I haven't said anything. He still thinks I'm here for him. My chest constricted. I stood frozen at the edge of the hallway, heart thudding so loud I thought it might drown her out. My breath hitched, loud enough that I had to step back, lean against the wall. I'll meet you in the city, she said, barely audible now. One more week. I promise. And then she turned off the water. I bolted. Back to the living room. To the couch. To the version of myself that had once believed in second chances. She came out 10 minutes later in her robe, towel twisted in her hair, skin flushed from the steam. Hey, she said softly, I thought you were doing laundry. I looked up from the couch. Masked my face with a smile I didn't feel. Yeah, I said. Got distracted. She smiled, crossed the room, and kissed the top of my head. I didn't move. And she didn't notice. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling. Her breathing deepened beside me. Slow. Rhythmic. Like she had nothing left to hide. But I'd heard everything. The truth, whispered underwater, in steam and tile. She wasn't mine. Not really. She had stayed long enough to be useful. To make it look real. To rebuild what she planned to leave again. And now I knew. The next morning, I woke before her. Made coffee. Let the house fill with the same familiar scent. Everything looked normal. Felt normal. But it wasn't. I looked at her suitcase in the corner, the one she hadn't unpacked fully. I looked at her phone, face down on the table. And I realized something with absolute, soul-splitting clarity. You can survive betrayal. You can even forgive it. But you cannot unhear the truth. Not when it's spoken like a secret. And not when it's meant for someone else.